Storehouse Media. Sherrie, how are you? And we have a very inspiring, exciting guest today, don't we?
I am fine. Thank you, Neil. And yes, inspiring is a really good way of describing our guest, Rebecca Contreras. And I had the pleasure of working with her in her book, Lost Girl. And I am telling you, and I was telling her before the show that out of all the books that we've worked on, hers has to be the top. It's memorable, inspirational, like you can do it. It's just one of those you can do it kind of books. And here's why. So there's a lot of messages in Lost Girl, and welcome Rebecca. I want you to tell the story because it is your story, but it is powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Neil and Sherrie. And I love being able to just share the impact with people from all walks of life, all industries and sectors. And I always tell people, a lot of people say I came from ground zero. I always tell people I came from below ground zero. So there is such a place. And I know many Americans and people throughout the world find themselves in hopeless situations. And I'm just grateful to have been one of the ones that truly paved a way forward to get out of and carve my own destiny. So thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes. Well, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. So go ahead, Sherrie, with your first question.
Okay. So, let's start. I'm such a backstory person. You have done well and you came from nothing. So just telling your story and, like how did you end up getting into the government, working for the government, becoming a government employee and what you were doing?
Yeah, so Sherrie, the tagline for my book, it's Lost Girl, but the tagline is From the Hood to the White House to Millionaire Entrepreneur. And the reason that I chose that tagline is it's really important for people to understand that a journey is a trajectory of steps that you sometimes take, and they're bold steps, right? So those are three very bold, kind of like grip you statements. I'm just a border town girl. I grew up in the border town of El Paso, Texas, right at the corner of Juarez and El Paso. Back in the day, you could walk across the street to go into Mexico and have your tacos and your fun, and walk right back. Of course, now you can't go cross the border at all. It's so dangerous. But I'm one of four children. My mother was a heroin addict, prostitute. She lived on the streets, and we grew up poor. We grew up in abject poverty in conditions that really should not exist in America. And unfortunately, they still do for so many children and so many people that live in abject poverty. But, my mother made a choice in her life early on to get involved in drugs, and she had four kids out of wedlock. None of us knew our fathers. We all had different fathers, with the exception of my twin brother and I. My brother's dad was Mexican, my sister's dad was black, and our dad was from Yugoslavia, white. And we used to tell my mom, you just need the Asian to complete the circle of diversity. She was, in all intensive purposes, she was really about true diversity back then. But she just grew up in addiction, and mental illness plagued our home. She was bipolar through most of her life and grew up in poverty on welfare. We are a product of the welfare system as children, and it was just a habitual cycle that we were on. And she abandoned me when I was 5 and said she was going to the grocery store and never came back, and left all four of us in the project housing projects right at the border of Juarez and El Paso by ourselves for 3 days before a neighbor called my grandmother and said, you better come get these kids because we're calling social services. And so my grandmother, who is my hero, she's in heaven now. She's not with us anymore, but she saved us. And she kept us out of the foster system and kept us out of for the time that we lived with her, which were a few years. My mother was on the streets. We didn't know where she was, alive or dead. We didn't know where she was, and she was gone. But then she came back about 2 years later, and it took my grandmother about 2 years to allow her to take us to Austin. And she moved us and ripped us away from the only stable home that we had with my grandmother and brought us to live with her in her new life. She was rehabbed in Austin, in also a poor community. But it really wreaked havoc on my childhood and my teen life. And I really did not have a relationship with her at that point. I was 9 years old and I was like, who is this woman? She left me. I don't know who she is. So it was a really rough time. And I talk about the first 3 chapters in my book, Lost Girl, talk about that journey as a child of abuse, neglect, addiction, and just riddled with all sorts of trauma that really hurts your life. In so many ways, people are impacted by trauma.
Yeah,
Um,
there's so much in your life is affected by trauma. I mean, like, and then but I think it also, if you study lots of successful people, and congratulations and what you've been able to accomplish, that the ones that have been able to do this have gone through things that not lots of people can handle. A lot of people can't go through this adversity. And if we look at a lot of the people that have put their mind to doing something amazing and unbelievable, they've had to go through a lot of crap.
Yeah, and you know what? I always tell people as I am a thought leader now, and in addition to my consulting firm that I own, I travel the nation sharing the Lost Girl story. And I can tell you there are so many people. I don't care, Neil, if I'm in a room of business people, and I just did a big event in Dallas, 4,000 people in a room of top educators, people with master's degrees and teaching degrees, and the tears coming down people's eyes when they heard the story. I don't care where you walk or where you've been, everybody deals with trauma. And some people deal with it and suppress it and never ever really deal with it. And it comes out in all sorts of other ways and behaviors that are not healthy for us in our family. And so in my case, I chose at a very young age to deal with my trauma head on. I had a pretty crazy teen life and spiraled out of control, got involved in drugs, dropped out of school, got pregnant as a teen mom, and just did the whole thing that, I was rebelling against. And until the age of 19, I had an intervention in my life that really saved my life, and it put me on a trajectory for a different kind of future. But it wasn't alone, right? So I talk about the power of community and the power of relationships and people that are better than you that can help you in the middle of the mess and say, you don't need to stay there. Like, you have so much potential. And those interventions of people that believed in me early on in my journey of Lost Girl were transformational in my life.
Yeah,
So true. Wow.
you you became a teen pregnancy statistic, but instead of repeating that generational thing you had going on, you broke out and you got a job for the state of Texas as a receptionist. In your book, you're like, I was going to be the best darn receptionist there was. And that was
Yeah.
your journey and how you moved up. And you go from that to being the head was HR there in
Head
the
of
state of
HR,
Texas
yeah, for Governor Bush.
under Bush. And then Bush we know he got elected for president, and off she goes to DC, become his personal advisor, then goes forward and she's over the United States Treasury of 128,000 plus employees that she is responsible for. But then she leaves all of that. She comes back to Texas and she starts these nonprofits for these kids, and several
Yeah.
nonprofits. She pays it forward. And that's what I find so exciting as well.
Yeah, I always tell people our success is not for our own hoarding. It really isn't. I mean, we're about community, we're about impact. My life represents a life of impact. One person, when I was 17, down and out as a teen mom on drugs, just on poverty, on welfare, with no hope for a future. If somebody had said to me, Rebecca, one day you're going to be the advisor to the leader of the free world in the Oval Office. One day you're going to be a mom and a grandmother of 35 years married. One day you're going to be an entrepreneur representing the fastest growing demographic of women-owned business in America with 130 plus people on your team. I would have laughed in their face, but it was that individual that believed in me and said, you can do better than this. So I went back to school, got my GED, and entered in a welfare to work program. I was desperate to get off of welfare, Sherrie and Neil. I hated poverty. I hated standing in the Salvation Army line for my shoes every school year. I hated not having the needs that I needed, to have met, because my mother was on welfare her whole life. and lived and lived in abject poverty. And I believe welfare is good for the time being. It should have helped her, but it's not meant to be a lifelong benefit. And she never wanted to work and never could work. And she had a lot of situations in her life that prevented her from really being a productive citizen in many ways. And so I hated that. And so at 19, I'm like, this is it. Like, rock bottom is rock bottom. And I have a daughter now who I am responsible for. And I entered in this welfare to work program, and I met a woman in government by the name of Ann Richards. She's an iconic Texas governor here in the state of Texas, and only the second woman ever in the history of the state to become governor. And you know, I became her receptionist. And in that welfare to work program, that leader that I worked for at the time, which was the head of HR, took me in, and I got to see women in power and in action, and I got to get a line and a vision, a line of sight for my own career, and started developing my career in government, and worked for three iconic leaders here in the state of Texas. I worked for Ann Richards, then K. Bailey Hutchison, who went off to be U.S. Senator. Then I worked for George W. as my last. So, you know, those were visions that I had to like grab a hold of, but also do the really hard work on me.
Yeah. And and that's it. Do the hard work, put the hard work. This is the thing that people define in success. There's no such thing as overnight success. It involves work, and it involves a lot of work and a lot of hard work that you do sacrifice a lot of things in your life to do. And I think that's forget when you look at very, very successful people, they have to put that time in. And I think that's missing with young people today, Rebecca. And I was in this conversation with another podcast with Sherrie and I, and bringing up the people don't want certain people. There's still a lot of hard workers out there, but there are a lot of people who don't want to put the work in to bring the success.
Yeah, it can't tell you how much we do our best, my husband and I both, through our nonprofit, to really change the mindset and the thinking of young people, especially inner city kids. You know, we have my husband calls them the diamonds in a rough that we work with. We've worked with over 2,000 kids. I currently have a Girls of Legacy initiative for brown and black girls that come out of the inner city, they're smart, but the only denominator they have is they're poor, and we scholarship them to go to university and college. We've given over $100,000 in scholarships in the last 3 years to 16 girls. I've got one girl at A&M that is going to be a med student. Math. She's finishing her bachelor's, and she's going right into med school. She's amazing. She is incredible, and she's poor, but she now has our support. And, you know, there are so many young people out there. I think, you know, the culture is such that there are a lot of people that don't want to work, and they want instant gratification, right? So I want this tomorrow, in this day of social media and culture norms. It's like, you know, I don't want to work hard. We worked really hard for everything we have. You know, that trajectory of becoming from the hood to the White House to becoming a millionaire entrepreneur didn't come because I didn't work my tush off, right? But hard work, good mentors, obviously focusing on your education and the fact that you can overcome any obstacle you face. All those things are such good things. But the most important thing, Neil and Sherrie, in my life has been the people that I have surrounded myself with, because the right people in my life were the people that made me dream and also made me work really hard and think differently about what I wanted in life. The wrong people that were dragging me down took me down a different path. So I think the younger generation today, and just people in general, you know, their network and the community they surround themselves with will make or break their future.
She's impressive,
Absolutely.
Sherrie. You told me this.
I know. I know. I
And
agree.
and you know what? And you, so Sherrie, working with Rebecca, then I'm going to ask the same question for Rebecca working with Sherrie. How much of a pleasure was it to work with Rebecca, Sherrie?
Oh my gosh, Rebecca was great. You know, she knew what she wanted, and we went with it. And you know, and working on her story and uncovering things, you know, with her story and with her was like, wow, you know, she can do it. I mean, she came from that and she can do it. Now, one thing that she impressed on her book was coachability and mentorship. Like, that's how you start flying, and but you have to be coachable and willing. And you know, we'll add that ingredient into that portion of success. But I loved it. I'm looking forward to working on her second book with her.
Yeah, I have this, Sherrie, I haven't told you this yet, but I'm exploring doing a documentary on Lost Girl, and I'm working with a
Oh,
filmmaker who's an award-winning filmmaker right now to do a multi series documentary on. I've had so many people. Lost Girl has touched over 300,000 people in the last 4 years, in the message, through audience and obviously readership, and a lot of boots on the ground and getting the story out to speak to as many groups across the industries as I can. But I will tell you what I hear everywhere I go, and I come off, whether it's a 4,000 person event or a 10-person event. I go down and I talk to people afterwards. If it takes 2 hours, I stay there until everybody gets a signed book and a shake hand or a hug. And what I hear, and my metric for me that this is working, because you know me, Sherrie, I'm results driven as an entrepreneur and business leader. If it does not have results attached to it, do not sign me up for it. I'm all about the impact. And for me, it's about human impact. And I say that investing in human potential is the greatest investment you can ever make. It is the most return on anything I have ever done. And I've made a lot of money, Neil, but the investment in human potential is so powerful when you
right.
see that human potential go.
I,
And what
I,
I
lo- I
hear,
love I love what you're doing because it excites me. It's because it excites me to want to move forward because you want to create a legacy. And we're seeing the legacies and how it's developing with the opportunity to help so many people all over the world. So I commend you for that and working with Sherrie. Now, what are your thoughts when you talk about working with Sherrie?
well, listen, I interviewed several ghostwriters when I talked to Sherrie and editors, and we landed on Sherrie. I didn't know her, but my publisher recommended her. I loved Sherrie's background when she told me that what she had done in her professional background. You talk about cover the gamut of pretty much everything from media to being an investigator and doing all sorts of things. It's amazing. I said to myself, this is a woman who's going to get Rebecca. Not a lot of people get Rebecca. They will see the Rebecca on the stage and think that I'm this grand new person. But there's so much more to me in my core that Sherrie immediately honed in, and she understood my mission. I said, look, I don't want to just write a nice book. I'll hang this up tomorrow. I want to create impact. I want every reader, and from page to page, the feedback I get is it's riveting. I've had people who are not readers who say, I never read books. And I read your book in 2 days. I could not put it down. It was riveting. Sherrie helped me create that. And I knew she would because she's such an incredible human. But she also got me. And she pushed back. There were some stories I wanted to put in the book that she's like, oh, this is a little too much. Let's leave this one out. Let's just keep that between you and your God. And but there's some great stories in there, but she was really balancing me out in terms of that sort of flow of the story, but also the takeaways and how important it was to leave the audience with some good takeaways, some nuggets. And she did a great job of helping me tell the story.
How important is that, right? To hire someone like Sherrie to work with when you're writing your book. How much time is involved in a ghostwriting process?
Oh my gosh. I think, well, our project was accelerated because I wanted it done like yesterday. And I had, at that point, I was speaking to big audiences and I had been already on big stages for events and I didn't have a book. And everywhere I went, people would say, do you have a book I can buy? I want to hear your whole story. Your 20 minutes of telling it doesn't do it justice. And I would say, well, no, I don't, but it's coming. And then after 5 and 6 and 7 years of saying, no, I don't, it's coming, I finally found Sherrie, and thanks to my publisher. And I'm so grateful for everything. And there will be another book, but before that, we might just have a documentary, which I think will help me get the message out so much more broader than my physical presence at events.
Wow, I'm really impressed about that. That's wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Exciting.
Okay, so you're a rock star already in so many ways, success. What is your next goal What do you want to attain? I'm looking for continued growth of what I'm doing, and then partnering with Sherrie at Storehouse Media Group is one of the most exciting things because we're taking idea out book all the way to movie, and we're really providing that marketing that helps all authors, not just, put the book out, but what's next. What is next for you? Where are you going?
Well, it's interesting, Neil, because I get asked that question all the time. And there are four legs to Rebecca in terms of my impact. There's my consulting business, which is my bread and butter. It's the fuel and the avenue that I get to make the money so that I can then do the philanthropic stuff. We have the Lost Girl, obviously thought leadership practice, where we do a lot of thought leadership events, podcasts, training, those kinds of things. And I do about 15 events a year. And we have the nonprofit, our Launchpad, which is the social part, social entrepreneur. My husband and I both are committed to create impact in the inner city, and I want to continue to train and develop girls. My goal is to give $500,000 to our Girls of Legacy program through our Girls of Legacy program in the next 3 years. So I'm looking to more than quadruple what we've given to date. And that is a match program, by the way. So if somebody gives $10, then I personally match it. So every dollar that's given, I personally match, so that it becomes double the impact. And we handpick the girls, we mentor them, we develop them, we coach them. They don't just get a scholarship check. So that's a big focus for me. And lastly, I believe in investing in women entrepreneurs and in doing what I can to share my story with entrepreneurs. I've mentored a couple of women entrepreneur Latinas that have started their businesses, have been very successful, but with my mentoring, helping them sort of scale up. I just believe in the entrepreneur spirit, Neil, in America. I think it's as President Bush used to say, it's the engine of America. It's the engine that keeps the economy going. And it's such an incredible place to have my time invested in. So, all those four things, along with being grandmother, mom, and wife of 35 years, as Sherrie knows, I operate at top capacity, and I try to make sure that, I'm centered spiritually. I'm having my God time. I'm having my physical time to stay fit. I'm aging, so I got to take care of my body and mind. But, I believe that as I continue to go forward in those four legs, I'm really looking forward to the potential of having a documentary in place. And I'm just exploring the early stages of that. But I think there's a lot to be done in the community. Like, our work is never done when it comes to social impact. And I'm just looking forward to that message being spread of paying it forward.
All right. Well, fantastic. I
For
love it.
all.
I just love it. You're just amazing, Sherrie. Anything to add from Rebecca's story? This is such a great podcast because I really think it's inspiring so many women. I have foundations I work with that Rebecca definitely want to discuss with, and I'm on the board for both of them. And there's a lot of just opportunity we want to help, and I'm putting myself out there to be able to teach and develop. If you ever want me to do a speaking or anything involving entrepreneurship,
Nice.
what I do as a marketer,
Yeah.
I'm here for you. So I'm just tell you that. But
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
It's so great to,
And
it's
also, I
just,
guess the whole podcasting thing, because I've been doing this for over 15 years and I've done over 15,000 plus interviews. And so, yeah, just
wow.
today alone, I think I did 4 today already. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Isn't that right, Sherrie? And then I guess the fifth will be here. Then I got another one. And then, yeah. So I average about 20 a week. But go ahead, Sherrie, with anything else to add about Rebecca.
I'm saying, if you haven't read the book Lost Girl, pick it up. It is inspirational, and it hits so many demographics, single moms, addictions, mental health, success, politics. I mean, the book has so much in it to
It
really
covers a
strike a
lot
lot of
of gamuts, doesn't it, Sherrie? There isn't
it
one
does.
area untouched in Lost Girl.
Not one.
Entrepreneurship.
I'll agree with you on that one. And what you've
Yeah,
talked about for
yeah.
sure.
It's one of the top ones, I would say, to me.
All right. So Sherry's got her favorite out of her. So congrats on that, Rebecca. People
Thank you.
can pick up the book. Where's the best place you want people to pick up the book?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. It's a bestseller on Amazon. The audiobook is my personal voice. So if people like listening to authentic authors tell their stories. It's on audio and of course Kindle. And then if they get it off my website at RebeccaContreras.com, there is a way to subscribe. All of my content is free on my website. I do training seminars. I have entrepreneur series, all sorts of blogs I release. And then I love to hear from people. Rebecca Ann Contreras on Instagram. I love to hear from people once they read the book. But yeah, I'm just happy to share the story, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. And I see you guys are doing great things. And how amazing, Neil, for you to meet so many great Americans and authors and just business people that can come on and tell their
Oh my
stories.
gosh. I mean, it happens every day. Having a New York Times bestselling author just today. I mean, I chose something that I never thought would. Everyone told me, they called it the Wayne's World story in so many ways, meaning I was in my basement. Now I'm in a nice
Yeah,
office doing this, but what are you doing? You're living your basement, living your dream. And I'm like, guess what? Watch out. And
yeah.
where we're at as an agency, Media Giant Productions, and working with Storehouse Media Group to provide all their marketing services for all their authors and everything, and where we're going is just amazing. But it's just because I have had so many people around me help me to get to where I am today. And now I see the vision, and I just want to keep cranking. It's like I'm 52,
Yeah.
but I'm like, this is just the beginning. That's how I look
Wow.
at things. In 15 years will be
Well,
January, and where we're going.
wow.
But I appreciate, I mean, if you looked at my list of celebrity guests, it's
Yeah, I did. It's very
unreal. And
impressive.
I'm like, okay, I'm 14th celebrity podcast in world according to FeedSpot. I was down up to two at one point. I got to contact the FeedSpot people and say, are you kidding me? Who am I
Get
interviewing
back
every
in
week?
here.
You know what I mean? So, but I appreciate this. This story is amazing, and you need to get your story out to the world. And Storehouse Media Group is the place. You're at the right place
Yeah,
to get it out to the world.
I'm looking forward to working with Sherrie again at some level when the time is right. And I know that she and her team just are exceptional, and I'm honored to have. I call it a God connection. I'm honored to have the connection to her, and I suspect we will be friends and work together again very soon.
All right. That and go to
Okay.
storehousemediagroup.com to find out information on Sherrie. Appreciate it, guys. All
Okay.
right. That was
Thank
a
you.
special simulcast.